Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. I am Margaret Dennis, your host, and I'm a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach. And I work with women who've been through grief and trauma, help them to heal and move forward without the guilt, which we are very good at taking on as women. And so this podcast is meant to bring awareness and communication and just bringing grief to the table to talk about all things grief and to also introduce some other areas that are involved either directly or indirectly in the grief journey. So today I am very honored to welcome Lita Mae Button. She's from, I'm going to say you're from Dildo, Newfoundland, but I think you're from just outside of Dildo, Newfoundland, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, yes. I just think that it's hilarious that they've named a town Dildo. And I love that. So, and I'm gonna before we get diving in with everything, I'm going to read Lita Mae's bio so you can get an idea of who she is and what she's all about, and then we're going to jump right into it. All right. So, Lita Mae Button is a dynamic motivational speaker. Yes, she is. I've heard her speak. She's amazing. And boxing coach dedicated to empowering women and seniors through the art of boxing. A university graduate in nursing, she combines a wealth of knowledge with a storytelling, down to earth approach, inspiring individuals to embrace the transformative power of movement. As a fitness award and Golden Gloves boxing winner, she emphasizes that health is your number one wealth and believes that movement through boxing heals the mind, body, and spirit. With a hopeful and wise perspective, Lita Mae Button encourages everyone to dream big and take action toward their health and fitness goals, proving that strength, power, and resilience can be found both inside and outside the ring. She currently lives full time in Newfoundland, Canada, where she walks her eight, yes, eight Nigerian dwarf goats along the beautiful ocean shoreline. Love that. Welcome, Lita Mae. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you for having me, Margaret. And hello, everybody. Everybody listening here.
Yes. So why don't you start off and just share your story with us?
Okay, well, I will try to condense the kind of nuggets, I guess you could say, because my journey kind of story starts when I was a teenager and I suffered from like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, depression, and I had on and off suicidal ideation.
Hmm.
And I really believe the thoughts and the beliefs and that lack of confidence and belief landed me in a very unhealthy relationship when I was in my early 20s, and that left me pregnant and having to figure it out on my own because my son's father wasn't taking responsibility. And I was already kind of emotionally not grounded, I guess you could say, but I knew that I needed to figure it out because this little being that was going to come into my life soon enough was relying on me. And I had a number of college education courses, and I knew that how important it was to be the number one kind of person and role model in their child's life because they're always looking up to you.
Hmm.
But little did I know how much like life was really going to kind of knock me down because I was already trying to figure out my path, get a grounding and sense of really who I was, and then becoming a parent. And when my son was 6 months old, he began getting what I call these funny little bruises. And because of these bruises, I didn't know what was going on, but they were very concerning. And somebody thought that they were really concerning as well, and they called Children's Aid Society on me. Yeah, so they showed up at my door unexpectedly when my son was 6 months old, and it left like it dropped. My heart dropped because we all, like in Canada, when we think Children's Aid Society, we automatically associate the kind of worst kind of outcome, right? Taking your
Hmm.
child away. I knew I'd done nothing wrong. After investigating for a couple hours and then doing all the paperwork after they left, they called me a few days later and said, we didn't see any abuse or reason for neglect, and we're closing your case. But then I was left wondering what the hell's happening to my child.
Hmm.
And a few months later, we were referred to Sick Children's Hospital, and my son was diagnosed with a rare and over the years at times life-threatening blood disorder called hemophilia B. So we talk about grief because I do remember like even though this my son's 22 now, but I still remember that diagnosis. And as a parent, you have all these hopes and dreams, and all of a sudden it's like that carpet's pulled out from underneath you
Mhm.
and you wonder what now? Like as a single parent, I was already like, how do I keep my head above water? I was still just trying to, you're
Mhm.
figuring it out with your first child.
Yeah.
He's my only child, but every parent says that, you don't know. And then all of a sudden I had no idea what my future was going to look like. And I had so much emotion, like it was both imploding and exploding.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize I wasn't coping. And because I wasn't realizing I was coping ineffectively, I was reaching for alcohol instead of, processing these emotions. I was young too. I was
Mhm.
only 23. I think with age comes more wisdom. I'd like to
Mhm.
think for most of us, not all of us, but oh, I was out one night with friends. My son was being looked after by my parents, and I got into an altercation. And I'd had previous kickboxing experience for self-defense and a couple competitive matches, and I was realizing that the late three girls there walked away in a very negative kind of way. They were all bloodied and bruised, and I was shocked, realizing with myself that I'm not dealing with my emotions. Like the ramifications of what could happen to me. I could have ended up in jail. Then what would happen to my son? I have a criminal record, like all these things. This is not the person and parent that I want to be. And so that fall, after that, that was a summer of 2024, I'd say. That fall, I began boxing competitively. And I say it's through one punch, one competition, facing one fear at a time. I was able to like pull myself up off of like the sucker punches that life had thrown at me and be able to channel those deconstructive, imploding, exploding emotions into something that went far beyond than I ever thought could ever imagine in my life. Like I learned how to take back my confidence, empower myself, and be able to be the role model for my son and just go after anything fearlessly that I want in my life so I can just no longer hold on to those emotions. So that's the short end of like 23
Mhm.
years of overwhelming emotions. And boxing really gave me tools because it's not, like you shared, Margaret, with the kickboxing, it's that release of emotion. And you don't have
Mhm.
to have the same level of like golden gloves and competition like I did. Boxing goes and transcends saving people's lives way beyond just the competitive arena because it's giving you that focus, it's giving you that mindset, it's giving you that discipline, it's giving you that positive outlet no
Mhm.
matter what way your emotions are going. Because when you're dealing with grief and you're trying to figure your life out all over again, your emotions are going to do that roller coaster.
Mhm.
And when you have somewhere that's safe and it can be both aggressive and expressive, that's what boxing gives you, especially with the people that are in that same kind of environment and mindset because
Mhm.
it's that support that is so, so important to help you overcome all those obstacles that life can throw at you. And we all know, everybody's watching this, how many obstacles life will come at you again and again. But if you have like a framework and a mindset and an understanding of that, even if you have to take a knee or you have to go back to your corner, you reset, you manage your energy, and you get back into, strategizing what it is that you want to do with your life again.
Hmm. I love that the way you've aligned it with dealing with your grief and having to figure out how do I process the emotions. I think this is a really important point that people need to understand that when we're going through grief and we're going through challenging times in our life that may not be grief related, but there's a lot of emotion connected to them. If we don't allow those emotions to flow, because we've talked about it when I was on your podcast, that emotions are energy in motion. They
Yeah.
need to move, they need to process. And so having an outlet that'll allow you to express emotion, or and to clear, and almost clears your head. Like
Yeah.
I shared with you before we started recording that I used to kickbox. Now, I also am a very big wimp, so I didn't do combative or competitive kickboxing. I just really like to kick the bag and punch the bag. And I happened to be doing that when I was planning a wedding, my wedding, very long time ago. And I loved the way that, when it was kind of frustrating sometimes, you could really get those emotions out. And I could understand now that for a lot of people who are grieving, sometimes there's that anger buildup, there's
Yeah.
the sadness, there's the resentment, there's the frustrations. People don't understand me. I feel so all alone. And there's this almost like this pressure that you want to get out.
Yep.
But sometimes we can't find the words, right? Or it's, I just don't want to talk about it, but something has to give. You've got to get it out somewhere. So whether you go for a walk, you journal, you meditate, you do something, you could also go into the ring, right?
Yeah.
You could start boxing. And what an incredible workout. Like, talk about getting your body in motion and being able to move those emotions around. I did have an experience at one point in my life, like after my son had passed away, and we were at my ex-husband and I were at a circuit training event, and I was just really overcome with emotion,
Yeah.
and I kept it in. And then we started this circuit training, and all of a sudden I started crying. Couldn't stop. Literally, it didn't matter what I tried. I couldn't stop. So I had to leave and go sit in the coat cupboard for a while while I just cried by myself. But it was one of those things that's what gave me the push to release the emotion. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, do you find that when you're working with people and you're doing the training and you're coaching them, because you do health and fitness coaching, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So when you're working with them, especially through the fitness, if they're going through something, how does that come out in the ring? How does that come out in their training?
Well, I've done a couple competitive training camps for women over the years. And and I let the women know because it's an extremely emotional journey. It's really intense because it's even though you are competing against someone else, the number
Mm-hmm.
one person that you're actually competing against is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You step in that ring competitively. I equate it to public speaking because you're vulnerable. You're completely
Mm-hmm.
naked, even though you're not like actually physically naked. It's not like porn or anything like that, but you're vulnerable. You're completely
Mm-hmm.
putting yourself out there, vulnerability. So in that process is the roller coaster of emotions. And one of the emotions is for a lot of people is that there's a sense of wanting to quit. I can't do it
Mm-hmm.
because it's 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 almost overwhelming to be able to face yourself and face that vulnerability if you're not used to it. So I always preface it to say that these are the emotions that you're going to experience. You're going to experience highs, you're going to experience lows, you might even experience that you feel like you want to quit. But I promise you, when you're at the other end of it, you're going to learn and have a whole other 100% new version of yourself that you're going to be so proud and you won't regret one moment of it when you look back on it because you saw it through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that journey is very similar for many other goals. I mean, it's that's this extreme kind of level because
Mm-hmm.
not everybody can get punched in the face.
Yeah, no.
No, and that's okay. There's no judgment with that. I totally understand that it's a different journey. It's just
Mm-hmm.
you have a whole other level of understanding of yourself and what you're capable of and overcoming. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the same journey for those stretching themselves to reach new goals, especially for women who've never really kind of had that sense of a belief or identity of knowing what it's like to be their optimal health.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary, it's angry, it's frustrating. I was just on a coaching clarity call with someone the other day, and there was a lot of anger and like frustration and that, and I was just asking questions, and at the end of the call, I said, And it's been a struggle for them for a number of years. And I said, I think, from what you're telling me, what you're looking for is joy and passion and moving your body again. It's not so much about just reaching from point A to point B. It's just finding that joy and living in that home 24/7. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're processing the grief and you're going through that, that's what you're looking for again.
Mm-hmm. And a lot, it was as you were speaking, you were talking about that journey that you take the girls on through the training camp,
Hmm.
of that you're going to have the highs, you're going to have the lows, and then you're going to have to, decide if you're going to keep going, but then it's so worth it on the other side. That is so in alignment with how people are in grief. I literally, my newsletter that went out today was talking about the game Keep Away. All right. My dog plays Keep Away.
Oh,
And,
okay.
so we were meant to talk today. And it's all about the idea that you get close, 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 and you're like, you're working on it. And then it's like either too scary, too overwhelming, too much, and you pull back. And I think that's similar to what you were saying there with what the girls experience when they're going through the training. We also experience going through grief, is that grief, the emotions that are attached to that can be so overwhelming. And so we're afraid we're going to start crying and never stop. We're going to get really angry and maybe hurt someone. And so we get really close to the precipice of releasing the
Hmm.
emotion,
Hmm.
and then we pull ourselves back. But what you said, love it. Once you get past that, look at the joy and the new identity of who you are on the other side. And the process of going through grief is almost like going through a boxing training camp, because you literally, you're being beaten up by the emotions.
Yeah.
And you might get punched in the face a few times, whether you want to or not. But who you get to be on the other side of that is so incredible. And it's still you, but it's a different version of you.
Yeah.
And same with the health journey. Like, there's, like you were saying with that woman you were just speaking with, like there's a lot of grief that comes along with rebuilding personal health.
Hmm.
And a lot, because you're letting go of that identity of that person, of who you were, and you're moving into this new version of yourself. And it's all the emotions that go along with that too, about, berating yourself for the choices that you've made.
Hmm.
um and being upset with yourself, judging yourself, lack of compassion, and fear of the unknown. When you said so many women don't know what actual real healthy, like full health is like, I'm probably one of those women. And when you said that, I was like, oh, because you're going into the unknown, and if you've never been in that peak condition, you really don't know what to expect.
Yeah. And it's scary when
It is.
I like to say, somebody said it a long way and I heard it, it's not come from me, but it's like the only person that really appreciates or likes change in life is a baby in a wet diaper.
That's so true. That's so true. We are so programmed to stay in the familiar, right? Our brain will keep us in whatever's familiar with us, for us, and whether that's our grief, whether it's our health, our fitness, wherever we are in life, whatever's familiar is safe,
Yeah.
right? And so we will, if we want to make change, if we want to become that Golden Gloves boxing champion, if we want to improve our health, if we want to move through our grief, we have to do things differently.
Yeah.
We've got to take a chance. We've got to be courageous and take even just baby steps to get there.
Yeah.
But we're going to be fighting the brain, our survival reptilian brain, that says, oh my goodness, this is so unfamiliar and it's painful and it hurts. And what are you doing? And we want to go back into where it's safe and comfortable, and that where we know it's familiar and we know what to expect, even if we know logically that's not what's best for us.
Yeah. And that's
Right.
why we discussed this when you
Mm-hmm.
were guest on my podcast, is that it's important to have a coach
Mm-hmm.
because of these reasons, because
Mm-hmm.
um it's not, if we have to have somebody who sees it from an objective position
Mm-hmm.
to help you
Mm-hmm.
push past that perceived limitations that we put upon ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very important to have somebody else that's rooting for you in your corner, to keep you focused on your goals,
Yeah.
reminding you why those are the goals that you're going for, reminding you why it was so important, and cheering you on, and helping pick you up when you stumble and fall and when you lose. I think sometimes when we're going on these deep personal journeys, let's put grief aside for a second, but when we're going forward on this new health or fitness journey and we're moving into the unknown, there's going to be a lot of stumbling blocks. There's going to be those times where you don't want to get up at 5 a.m. or you don't want to do the workout today, or you don't want to eat whatever the menu is for today. And you just want to sit down with a bag of chips and binge watch Netflix the entire weekend because that's where your brain takes you. So, how do you work with people then, Lita Mae, who are in that crux of making that decision of like, do I listen to the angel or do I listen to the devil on my shoulder? Like, which one? What advice do you give people? Because I think it would be
Yeah.
relevant across all areas: fitness, health, grief, life goals, whatever it is that you're looking for. What advice would you give them when they're in that moment of decision and I just want to give up? It's
Yeah.
too hard.
Well, the first thing that I always say is remember your why you started in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because your why is like that kind of that anchoring point to remind you. And then the second thing is that that feeling is only temporary, those
Mm-hmm.
things, you know, and if you slip up, I mean, we're human, you know, none of us are perfect. Even like coaches are not perfect. We're not perfect. We're always constantly working on ourselves. So it's that for me as a coach, I'm always reminding people it's love, compassion, and non-judgment
Mm-hmm.
on yourself first and foremost, and reach out for support. You know, if you're struggling, I'm always checking in with my clients because I work online. So I'm regularly checking in. That's the difference between online coaching and one-to-one hour coaching. It's like I'm there 6 days a week with my clients as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to only like 2 hours a week in the gym type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the wins you were saying about small steps. I think a lot of people fully underestimate keeping track of those positive small steps. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm guilty of this as well as a coach over the years. Like sometimes we all get in our head and we're like, well, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I haven't accomplished this. But then when you look back on the journey and you like, oh yeah, I did. And there's so many times I've had conversations with clients, oh yeah, yeah, because it's right. You're looking at how you far you have not come without
Mm-hmm.
realizing how far you have come.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm always doing is reminding about the wins and the things that they can be proud of on the journey that they've accomplished and
Mm-hmm.
done.
I
And
love that.
if you're not familiar with the physical aspects, sure as heck you've done it as a woman, sure as heck you've done it as a business owner, you know, or if you're an employee, you know, because women were always giving, 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 and supporting others. So
Yes.
all you have to do is turn that around and give that same love and compassion and kindness to yourself.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
It's
beautiful.
not, I'm not the physical kind of coach. Not, I do go put people through physical because it's so important. Movement is medicine.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
But we are our mind, we're our body, we're our emotions, and
Mm-hmm.
we are our social support and connections.
Yes, we definitely are. And it's so important for people to reach out when they need that support and to recognize that you're struggling,
Yeah.
right? Like I always say to my clients when I'm working with them, um, like we meet every week, usually when they're in the initial phases with me. It's weekly because they need time to process in between, but I
Yeah.
always leave it open. It's like if something comes up for you or you've hit a wall or you just need that, 15, 20 minutes of support in that moment, please reach out, right? Please reach out. Make sure that you're connecting with me so that you'll feel supported. And I love that you said you're online with your people for like 6 days a week. That's pretty incredible that they would have access to you to be able to do that. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty amazing. That's
That was
pretty
one of the
amazing.
main reasons I switched over to online coaching because
Yeah.
it's more not to say that in-person isn't transformational because I'll be doing like a
Mm-hmm.
12-week camp again here this fall for women and well
Mm-hmm.
not just because I'm in Newfoundland but um the online coaching provides that deeper aspect that a lot of people need for transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And
it's
that's transformation in anything, really. Like transformation does not happen overnight.
Yeah.
So whether you're transitioning or transforming your body from physical and physical health, nutritional health, and you're really focusing on building that, it's going to take time. You know, it took so many years to get you to where you are now. It's not going to happen overnight. And the same thing happens with our emotions,
Yeah.
right? Our emotions don't just go away overnight. Just because you uncover a layer of awareness or you understand why you feel that way, yes, that's very enlightening and it lightens things, but it doesn't mean that you forget, doesn't mean that it goes away. It means that you're starting to transform moving forward, but it takes time and
Yes.
processing. So, yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, I see, I've been looking on my notes for very briefly because, oh, yes, it was. I was like, oh, I know. I'll get to that in just a second because I had a note written down. Do you think I could find where I'd written it down? No, because my menopause brain does not remember anything. But I did one of the things that when I, at the very beginning, when I was reading your bio, you talked about walking your 8 Nigerian dwarf goats. And I cannot let this podcast go without talking about your goats. Like
Yes,
I
go
have
for
a
it.
dog, I walk a dog. I've never heard of walking goats. So can you give us a little insight into that, please? Because I'm fascinated.
Okay, so I guess I can bring it to grief. I can definitely
Okay.
because it is
Okay.
relatable.
Okay.
So in 2020, like I lived full time in Toronto for 12 years, and then in
Okay.
2020 we moved to Newfoundland in the heart of COVID.
Oh, good move.
Wasn't boring. Uh, and so I got 2 Nigerian dwarf goats before I moved and brought them. And then it's in the pandemic. I'm living in rural Newfoundland. It wasn't easy to meet people at all.
Hmm.
Like I barely met anyone, Nate, and so I became addicted to Nigerian dwarf goats. Okay.
Okay.
Goats are the most comical farm animals that you can ever come across. They are like both social and they're emotional, and they are really easy to look after because you don't require too much space, and they're herd animals, so they'll do whatever the rest of the herd is doing. So I started with two. At one point in time, I had 12. And then I just because I
Whoa,
didn't have
12
any
just a little too.
friends. I didn't have any friends. And I was lonely. And so I started walking them because I was working online, and it's not
Yeah.
healthy to be online 24/7. It's really not. It's not good for your brain. We all know that screen time's not, you have to be very balanced.
Right.
And I believe in that and I live that. So that's what I started doing, walking my goats once to twice a day to get them. They need exercise. It's important for animals as well. They can't be just all cooped up. And and then when I bought the place that I live in now in 2022, I started in the summertime when the nicer weather, started walking goats as a like educational animal therapy thing because people were just COVID was still happening and people were really needing something to therapy, like animal therapy
Hmm.
and nature therapy is so phenomenal.
Hmm.
Like no
It
one ever
really
says
is.
who goes to a farm or whoever goes to puppy yoga or whoever goes says, "Oh, I had a horrible time." No,
No. No.
because it's so important to be connected to both animals and nature. We need more balance in that more than ever in our lifetime now.
Hmm.
So connected this way. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we have to have a proper balance. We're so
Hmm.
unbalanced. Our
Yeah.
minds are unbalanced, our emotions are unbalanced, our energy. Um, you know, it's just that's why I became obsessed with goats.
I love it. I love that you're obsessed with goats.
Yes, yes.
Oh, that is amazing. That's
Oh,
amazing. And so, what are their names? Before we finish
oh,
off, what are their names?
okay, so my 4 littlest ones. So I do have to say, this is my last summer of goat walks because I've become so busy with motivational speaking and coaching. So I have to let it go. Something's got to give. My 4 littlest ones that I will be keeping are Priscilla, Fiona, Heather, and Clarissa.
Hmm.
So Fiona came to a Fearless Talk event that I
Oh,
was in
amazing.
St. John's, yeah. And Charla, the one woman
Hmm.
founder, she was like, I was looking through all the pictures of the Fearless event, and she's like, the majority of them were Fiona and the goats already. There were just something I always say, once you go goat, you don't go
Yeah.
back. They're just, and then my four bigger ones that will be rehomed to a big pasture and farm here in the next couple weeks is Champ, Pippa, Penelope, and Caroline.
That's amazing. I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing your goat story. So if you are, going through grief, you're going through some rough stuff, get a goat. Goats are going to be like, get a dog, get a puppy, get a cat, whatever. Animal therapy is amazing. I don't know how many times I've curled up with my dog and she's so gentle and cuddly, unless, someone's at the door and then she's Satan. So it's like one or the other. But
But that's what you want in a dog. You want
yeah.
the protector.
Yeah, we've had people leave without sticking around, which is really great for like door to door people. But yeah. Um, she's actually lying quite quietly beside me right now. She sleeps right under my rolly chair, so I always have to be careful not to roll over her. But I digress. So yes, I love that you were able to provide that animal therapy and animal connection for the people in your neighborhood. What a beautiful thing to do. So I think before we sign off, there is one free offer that you wanted to offer to people who were listening to the podcast today. I had here a free beginning boxing challenge. Is that
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
If you go to litamaebutton.com, and I have
Mm-hmm.
my website there in the link,
Mm-hmm.
um, and register, like sign up for my email list, you'll get a 5-day free beginner boxing challenge. So very manageable, and it'll go over like mindset and of the
Mm-hmm.
different steps to set you up for success, and then beginner boxing for the next 5 days.
Fantastic. That's
Yeah.
awesome. You can go work out your feelings. It'll be
Yes.
great. I'm definitely signing up. I'll need to get a punching bag, but I definitely have the gloves from when I did my kickboxing before. And now I need now I need a bag.
Oh,
So
amazing.
anyway, yeah. Lita Mae, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and what you do. And if anyone is interested in reaching out to Lita Mae, all of her contact information will be down below in the show notes. So please, please reach out. And like she said, sign up for her email newsletter and you can get the 5-day free beginner boxing challenge. So you can get started on that. All right. Thank you all for listening or watching for today. And we will see you next time on Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. See you soon.
Bye. Thanks.